Greetings, salutations, and welcome to SportsLook, the sports television program for the High Plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and with the exception of me, everything else tonight is going to be new. We're going to have a new floor director. We're going to have two new guests that are going to be from the color squad. We're going to have a new guest that's going to be from ENMU basketball. I guess I'll keep a little bit of the format with an overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. Greyhound Volleyball unfortunately ran into a really good squad and lost their match last weekend, 3-0. Greyhound Soccer ran into the number 25 team, the women did, in the nation, unfortunately lost their match. Greyhound guys playing against the University of Texas Tyler in Tyler managed to battle to a draw. Unfortunately, the Greyhound football team playing in the wagon wheel game, they lost to WT, so WT now has possession of the wheel for at least 365 days. Well, that has been your Eastern recap, so what we'll do is we'll throw the set and we'll bring in Davin Vo, the head coach of Greyhound men's basketball, right now. Welcome back to SportsLook, and a privilege to bring to the set of SportsLook the head coach of Greyhound men's basketball, Davin Vo. Coach, welcome to SportsLook.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, congratulations on getting the gig, but you weren't exactly a stranger to Eastern when you got the head position.
Correct. Been here for a while. Really like calling this place home.
Devin, let's talk a little bit about your association with the sport of basketball. At what age did you start playing, and at what age did you determine that you wanted?
Man, I don't even know when I started playing basketball. It was very young, but right away, my first coach that coached me was my brother, and he's about 14 years older than me. And I looked up to him, and right away I knew I wanted to be a basketball coach. I wanted to be like him. And so probably from fourth grade and on, I knew that I was going to be a basketball coach when I grew up, and I just kind of played basketball through a coach's eyes. And people may say that, but I really lived it. I watched a lot of coaching videos that were about as boring as anything to an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, but it interested me because I knew that's what I wanted to do. And just growing up in a Vietnamese family, you're expected to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And I was going against the grain, and that's just kind of how I was growing up. Like if someone told me they liked the color white, I was going to tell them I liked the color black. And so I went against the grain, and it was tough, but that was just kind of what I did, and I knew I was going to be a coach for a long time. And so once I graduated college and I got done playing basketball in college, I stepped into a GA role at Oklahoma, and I was coaching ever since.
So what's the best word of advice that you ever got about coaching, and who gave it to you?
Best advice from a coach was the very first guy I worked for. His name is Dan Nichols. Now still the head coach of South Mountain Community College. He retired. I ended up taking his spot, and once I left South Mountain to go to Butler, he unretired and came back in. But he told me that coaching basketball isn't about money. Coaching basketball isn't about popularity. It's about changing kids. And at the community college level, that was very, very evident. And where we were at a Division II school, kids weren't getting full ride scholarships. We couldn't even provide them housing. But we were changing their lives because we're giving them an opportunity to get their education and showcase their ability so that they can get their 4-year degree somewhere. And we were really doing that. And he opened my eyes to what small college basketball was about.
Well, Davin, you were an assistant coach for Brent Owen, and Greyhounds kind of took their lumps the first year that he was the head coach. I think you only won 3 games. Second year, you guys went to the Lone Star Conference playoffs as the 8th seed. You weren't around last year when the Greyhounds actually won the tournament, but a lot of those guys were individuals that you'd recruited. So talk a little bit about your association with the former coach, Brent Owen.
Man, I can't thank that guy enough. He did such a tremendous job with his program. Not only with his program, but everyone that worked for him and played for him. He took care of us like we're his family. And, I didn't know Brent going into the job. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't even know the school that he was at. And one day I got a phone call from him during COVID He asked me about, my interest in coming to be the head coach here, and we talked, and I guess it went well. We ended up having a Zoom, and I met his wife and his family met my family on Zoom, and we were a match. He and I are pretty opposite in our attitudes, not attitudes, but just how we are. And I think that's kind of what he was looking for in someone that could see the other side. He's been a major influence. I mean, he's done a heck of a job here, and I'm only hoping to not only fulfill his shoes here and to accomplish some things, but maybe level that up and accomplish some things that he wasn't able to.
Talk a little bit about the difference between being an assistant coach at Eastern Mexico University and being the head coach.
It's a lot more stressful. I was a head coach for 7 years at junior college level. There's not a big difference between the two levels as far as the stress goes, but you wear it a little longer. The wins feel a lot better. The losses hurt a lot more. Your family feels it because every win and every loss hinges on their future, and so I love being a head coach. I've always imagined myself, always had that role, and always felt like that's how I needed to act all the time. And, you have a lot of responsibility, not only just as far as X's and O's, but how you treat people and the life, the long-lasting impression you have on the rest of the guys' lives. One of the coolest things I get to do is I get to have phone calls from my former players. And as a head coach, a lot of those players still call me today. And so some of these games coming up in Arizona, that's where I was a head coach at. These guys are calling and clamoring, and they're like, hey, we want to talk to your team. We want to see your team. We want to see you guys play. And they're really interested in that. But it's fun because I get to be a part of their life now when they're a dad, when they're a professional, and we see each other in a little different lens. So that's super rewarding as a head coach to see some of these guys grow.
A lot of the guys that were part of the championship team last year are no longer with the program. But you did have three guys that did come back, and talk a little bit about your three returners.
Well, if you don't mind, I didn't answer the last question great, but Greg Johnson, former player, guy that I helped recruit, is doing great in pro right now. I believe he just scored 30 points, and he's killing it. Ja'Cory Ely, same thing. One of them's in Bulgaria, another one's in another European country, but they're doing so well, and I couldn't be more proud of them. Those two guys, along with the two guys that returned that were starters, Jose Murillo and Mario Whitley, they add a ton of stabilization to our program. Guys look to them for guidance. They look to them for stability. They know how to win. And they're two of the best interior players in the league. Bring back another guy as a redshirt freshman. And Alex has been great. He has a great attitude. He has a workman's mentality, and they just add a lot of stability to our program. But again, Jose and Mario are two of the best players in the league, and they help us. They help us going forward in the season.
Obviously, everybody that you recruited at Eastern is a little bit different, but if there's one thing a ball player had to have and now has to have, what's the one quality that anybody that puts on the green and silver of Eastern has to bring to the table?
They've got to be tough. They've got to resemble some type of toughness. We've got to know that they've been through something and they were able to survive it and thrive from it. Our first year, we made some errors, and we learned a lot our first year. Brent and I did. And we promised to not make those mistakes moving forward. And that's why that class with Ja'Cory Ely and Greg Johnson and Graylin Easter and Eze Dike, that was such an important class because we wanted to make sure that we got tough guys. They ended up panning out pretty well, getting a Lone Star Conference tournament championship from those guys their senior year. And we're taking that same format moving forward. There's going to be some differences in what I do and kind of how I approach things. But as far as recruiting goes, we want to be as big and physical and as tough as we possibly can. That we want to emulate what Portales is all about.
You had your first game earlier this week. It wasn't a game that shows up in the standings, but it was in the McHale Center. Had referees, had cheerleaders, had spirit squad, had band. I mean, it had all the trappings of a big-time game. And University of Arizona predicted to be the 10th best team in the nation. I would not be surprised to see those guys go to the Final Four.
They're really good. That's the same program that beat Duke at Cameron Indoor last year. We knew we were going to have our hands full. We knew we were overmatched. Great atmosphere for our guys to go play in. Didn't have our leader in Mario Whitley. He had a family issue that he had to tend to. But it was a good experience for our guys. Do we wish we would have played better? Yes, but it is ultimately an exhibition and a scrimmage, and it's something that we can learn from, chop the film from, and improve on going forward. You know, playing a team like that, we're not Arizona, but we play very similar in that we like to go inside and we like to be very, very physical. And when we're trying to battle, you know, a top 10 program that has a 30-foot wall of former NBA players, it's kind of hard to beat them at their own game. And so it was fun. It's definitely not fun to lose those things and to lose in front of people like that, but it was a great experience for our guys.
And the one positive takeaway, I had the privilege of being there and broadcasting. You guys forced 16 turnovers against a team that, like I said, I think is Final Four material. Yeah.
Defense is our thing. We gave up more points in that game than probably we'll give up in 2 games in conference. They're really big. They're very physical. They got the Pac-12 returning player of the year. They've got 3 7-footers on their team that are very physical. And, surprisingly, our big guys, and we got away from it, our big guys played relatively well in the second half against them when we got the ball inside. We settled down. But defensively, we try to hang our hat on being disruptive. There's no doubt about that. We want people to know what we're going to be about, and defense is a calling card. Did it show up in the box score? No, but I think we're able to disrupt them a little bit to where we can have some confidence in what we're doing moving forward.
If memory serves me, the first home game is going to be the game where we invite all the elementary kids. It's going to be November 14th.
Yeah, it's a loud game. Baby Shark's going to be playing. All the cool kid songs are going to be playing. Frozen is going to be playing. So if you like Disney songs and kid songs, show up to that game. But I believe it's at 12. It's at noon. All of Portales Public Schools will be there. They'll bust their kids in. It's a game that we really, really like doing. When I first was getting the schedule together, we couldn't make that game happen. The team that we had agreed on with a date was Navajo Tech, and we agreed on a date, I believe, 3 days before Thanksgiving. And that was the date we signed a contract on, and we had them here, and I contacted Portales Schools, and they said, we can't do that day. We're off that week. And so I told my wife, and she didn't want to talk to me for a few days. She said, no one's going to like that, and you have to cancel that game. So she's, as much as I love Coach Parker and as much as I love Coach Bolin, my wife is the third assistant coach, and she told me you got to move that game. So luckily Navajo Tech was able to do that. We moved it to the, I believe, 16th or 14th? 14th. And we're looking forward to showing everybody what we're about in Greyhound in Steve Loy Family Foundation Arena.
Well, Coach, congratulations on getting the position, and can't wait to start seeing you guys play games that count in the standings.
Doc, I love being here, and I love talking with you.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment, so we're going to clear the set, and we're going to bring in somebody from the flag squad at Eastern New Mexico University right now. Welcome back to Sports Look, and a privilege to bring to the set of Sports Look 2 young ladies from the flag guard, the flag squad. We'll find out the proper terminology here in a minute. We've got Lindsay, we've got Caitlin, and ladies, welcome to Sports Look.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Lindsay, we'll start out with you. Where are you from, and what was the process that got you to the squad here at Eastern?
I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, so a little bit a ways away from beautiful Portales. But I decided to come to Eastern primarily because of the marching band program here, but also I am an ENMU legacy through my dad, class of '93. And he was definitely a strong proponent in getting me to check out Eastern while I was touring colleges. And then that was that, I came to Eastern and I checked out the campus and the marching band program, and I was like, I'm sold. So, and I've been here for 3 years, so.
And Lindsay, you were telling me before we went on the air that this is actually kind of a little bit of deja vu, because Your dad was involved in sports?
Yes, he was. Long time ago, back in the early '90s, when Dallin Sanders was still doing SportsLook. So it's been a long time, but yeah, we're very excited.
That's amazing. And Caitlin, I already know your backstory, but for everybody who's watching this program for the first time, where are you from and what was the process that got you here?
I'm from Clovis, 30 minutes away, not too far. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my degree or anything really. I didn't know what degree I wanted. So I was exploring colleges, and Patty Dobson, good friend of mine for a long time on my family's, she introduced me to the communications degree, and I did color guard. So Mr. Seifert asked me to be on the team, and that's how I met Lindsay. And yeah, I did marching band through Clovis High School, and I started here, and I really love the program.
And speaking of legacy, we're used to having you in the studio, but
Yeah.
usually you're my floor director.
Yes, sir.
So, Lindsay, let's talk a little bit about the fact that you're part of what we call a color guard at Eastern New Mexico University. How did you get involved in that back in the day to begin with?
So it's actually a really sweet story. So my freshman year of high school, I had no extracurriculars on my schedule or anything like that. I actually found out about marching band and color guard because my parents were out of town, and so my grandmother had to take me to school a little bit early. And marching band, as most people know, have super early rehearsals during the school year. Not Eastern, but high schools do. And I sat on my high school stadium, and I just fell in love with the visuals and the music. And I made it a point to be a part of the flag team with my dance background. It was just like my easiest in, and I just wanted to be a part of it. I didn't really care what I did. I just wanted to be a part of it. And I've been doing it for 7 years now, so I really enjoy it.
Yeah, the phrase is timing is everything. And literally, if the timing hadn't been right that day, you might never have gotten involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so thankful that I did.
Well, Caitlin, let's ask you about your association. Where did it come from?
So actually, I played an instrument all through middle school because I was kind of an athletic kid, but I was like, don't really want to run all the time. So I picked up the clarinet, which was my aunt's instrument. So I'm kind of following her lead. And then from middle school into high school, my band director was the color guard instructor. And so she really encouraged tryouts for the girls at Gaddis. She's like, hey, come out, try out for color guard. If you don't make it, continue marching. And so I went ahead and tried out, and I made the team of like 40 girls. So it was a lot of fun.
Lindsay, in terms of the routines that you perform at halftime, how much of that do you young ladies get a chance to influence? How much is it like Mr. Seifert says, this is what you need to be doing to accompany the song?
So we do have a color guard director, and she is very open to us writing our own choreography. So she'll write kind of like the meats and potatoes of the routine, but she'll give us like 16 counts of whatever we want to do for each person. So all in all, like every movement of the show has, 16 counts for each girl. We have 6. So 16 times 6, I can't really do math, but
That'd be 96.
96 counts of our own choreography.
That's one thing I can do off the top of my head is math. So.
Fantastic.
Caitlin, this is news to me. So who is the director specifically of Color Guard?
Here?
Yeah.
So it's Miss Jo. Miss Jo's our director here. She's also the director at Portales High School. And then Lindsay is actually our color guard captain. So she also helps with a lot of that. So, yeah.
So, Lindsay, do you watch other college games, look at halftimes, and try to pick up ideas that way?
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually what's called Drum Corps International, which is almost like professional marching band, and that happens. The season is over the summer, and they've got a good amount of different teams. There's actually one in El Paso called Arsenal, and those routines are much more intense than what we do. There's a flag line, a rifle line, a saber line, a dance line. They're hardcore. But visually, I just watch them whenever I can on flow marching, and I see them moving. And when they do the up close shots, I'm always like, oh, I wonder if I could do that. And then I teach myself different moves, and I bring some of that to the guard.
Well, speaking of which, we actually have some footage of the band and the color guard in action. So Let's cue the highlight reel, and if you ladies would walk us through it, please.
Well, this is pregame. This is what we do before the football game starts. There's Caitlin.
Yeah. And Callie
Callie.
and Jasmine there.
And there we go. This is after the fanfare. This is us marching into the sets. This is our pregame routine. This is the fight song choreography.
Yeah, we didn't write this. I believe we took it from guards from in the past who have done the same routine.
Yep.
So what is, and Lindsay, I'll direct this first to you and then Caitlin, what's the most difficult maneuver that you actually do with a flag?
Oh, I would say probably like the 45 ankle toss. That one takes a lot of upper body strength, a lot of speed in a very short period of time. And in order to not smack yourself in the back of the head with the flag, you have to have it at like a perfect 45-degree angle. And you also have to turn your body as you're catching it to avoid injury. So I would say that's probably the most difficult, but it's very beautiful. I love that toss.
And Caitlin, I'll ask you the same question for you personally. What's the most difficult maneuver?
So I'm going to have to agree with Lindsay on this. My freshman year, we were taught the 45, not college, but high school, I was taught the 45. And I gave myself a massive concussion with that flag, with that toss. So I have to agree with her. The 45 has got to be one of the hardest. And then I think the hardest for our show this year that we kind of had to manipulate out of our show and put a different toss in was the yo-yo toss. And it just takes a lot of momentum. And when you're teaching people how to do tosses they've never done before, if they don't have the strength behind it, sometimes it's a little bit harder to teach those tosses. And so we kind of had to pull that from our show. But that's got to be our second hardest one, was the yo-yo toss this year.
Yes, absolutely. I'd have to agree. That one is harder in the show because of the way that we move in our drill. So coming out of what we're doing to go into the yo-yo toss is not necessarily difficult, but doing that while also marching backwards can be pretty hard. So we switched it up a little bit.
Yeah. We still have a toss there, but yeah.
There we go. So I've got to ask you a fashion question. Did you ladies get input into the outfits that you wear, or did you inherit them?
So our freshman year, we did inherit costumes, and then we decided that we did not like them, so we were able to change our costumes up. Our freshman year was the show theme was Motown, and so we were able to get our costumes to look pretty cool. And same with the flags. Every silk that we use is personally picked out by the team. We vote on it, and then we give that order to Mr. Seifert, and then he'll order it for us. Our sophomore year, we picked a different uniform for pregame. And we picked a different uniform for the marching show. For Metallica, we wanted something more metal. And then this year, we picked another outfit for pregame and for the marching show. And I think it fits the show beautifully.
Caitlin, I think I know the answer to this question already, but I'll ask it anyway. So of all of the years that you've been involved at Eastern, what was your favorite year to perform?
I think my favorite year to perform, you're probably expecting me to say Metallica, but I actually think it was Motown. I really got to get close to the girls that year, and kind of had a rocky start because I'd come from Clovis. I kind of had this like ego behind me when I started guard, and I just really got to see what a team was like without that. Not saying that Clovis is bad. Like Clovis is phenomenal now. Those girls get along really well, but I didn't really come from that background, and I just really got to see what a team was like. And Callie and Lindsay both like really showed me that, and so I think that year was definitely my favorite because of that. That I really just got to learn with them, and we got to bloom together. So.
And see, that's why I'm glad I asked the question, because I would have bet money on Metallica. But Lindsay, let's talk about the fact that you're a student athlete. You're involved in color guard, but you're also a student. So what are you majoring in, and what do you hope to do with your life?
So I'm majoring in communications with an emphasis in public relations. My minor is in political science, and so I'm really hoping to go into public policy. I've been an intern with my Congresswoman Veronica Escobar in El Paso a couple summers ago. Last summer, I was an intern with my state senator, Cesar Blanco. And I got to see like two completely different kinds of government at work, and I just fell in love with it. So I'm really hoping to continue to pursue that after I graduate.
It does my heart good to hear that there are young people that want to go into the political realm, because you're the lifeblood, the future of our nation. Caitlin, let's ask you, same question. What are you majoring in, and what do you hope to do?
So my major is communications as well as Lindsay, but my concentration is productions, and my minor is graphic design. I hope to be like a multimedia journalist or a director of a station one day. I know that I've gone to a couple conferences. There's not a lot of like women directors and things like that. And multimedia journalism, it requires a lot of skill, not just with camera, but with being able to talk and being able to build your own graphics and being able to write your own stories. Like you're pretty much your own little tiny news station working for a news station. And I got to work with a lot of women and men alike, but I mostly sat with a lot of women, and they talked to me about a lot of the things they do. And I just really fell in love with multimedia journalism. So.
Well, Lindsay and Caitlin, thank you so much. I have learned a ton about color guard, and I have a much greater appreciation. So thank you for educating me.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
All right, well, that will wrap up the interview portion of Sports Look. So what we'll do is we'll clear the set, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. The World Series starts tomorrow. It'll be the 12th matchup in history between the New York Yankees and the Dodgers. Of course, the Dodgers were the Brooklyn Dodgers, then the Los Angeles Dodgers, but 12th time the Dodgers played against the Yankees. And with the exception of 1963, when the Dodgers swept the Yankees in 4, all of the World Series have had drama. Cookie Lavagetto getting the only hit for the Dodgers in 1941 and making that a game-winning hit. Al Gianfrido in 1947 making one of the most famous catches in history off the bat of the great Joe DiMaggio. Don Larson, after getting shellacked in Game 2 of the 1956 World Series, came back 4 days later through the only perfect game in World Series history. And in 1981, back-to-back home runs from Jay Johnstone and Steve Yeager provided the only hits, but the only runs in the Dodgers' clinching series victory against the New York Yankees. So I don't know what it's going to hold, but if it's history that is going to be any indication, it is going to be a World Series for the ages. Well, that will wrap up an overtime, and that will wrap up an episode of Sports Look. I'd like to thank my guests, Davin Vogt, the head coach of Greyhound basketball. We had Lindsay Williams and Caitlin Cook as our guests from the color guard. As I said, we had a new floor director, Donovan, doing a great job for me. So for all those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.